Hola, I hope you can hear me. Welcome back. I'm sorry I haven't been posting very many videos lately. I've had some personal things to deal with in our family, so but I'm back. Thanks for joining again. Thanks for all the support, everybody. Also, thanks for showing so much interest in the videos and asking when I was going to get another one out. And that's now. So actually I have two things in store for you, but I'll post the other one probably next week. Today what I'm going to do is do a follow-up to what I did with Jamil. More on Jamil at another time, but what I showed with Jamil was about the 5 basics. And what I want to show you today is what those basically look like on a horse that's more advanced. So obviously this is Isolde. She's recovering from a hoof abscess, so she's all fine now, but I'll do the exercises in walk. I won't be cantering, just to, take it easy with her foot. So what I want to touch on is those 5 basics I talked about in that video with Jamil. So I said, once you know those 5 basics, and it doesn't only apply to Doma Vaquera, it also applies to dressage, then you can basically do every advanced exercise. So those 5 basics are basically that a horse can move, or that he moves to your leg aids. He goes forward, basically. Then he stops, obviously. So very important. If you can make him move, you have to be able to make him stop. He has to back up. He has to change direction with your leg aid, and he has to yield to your leg. So he has to move away from the pressure from your leg. And with combinations of those, and that's something I'll be going into more detail each week now, because Isolde's up and running again. I won't be going to Spain until June, so I'll be explaining those things, and just super basic stuff. So for when you start with your horse, how do you get started and what do you need to focus on first? So like with any discipline, the basics are super important. So as you can see, I'm riding Isolde with one hand. Jamil obviously had 2 hands and 4 reins, and I was using the sereta. Isolde doesn't need the sereta. I believe her tail might go loose in a minute because there's lots of flies, and I used mane and tail spray. So that's a big bummer because I hate that. I always tie the tail every time I ride. But anyway, so I want to touch on those basics and really try to get you to understand what it means. So for example, if we just start with that first one, moving, stepping away. So I explained that with Jamil as well. And if you consider that Doma Vaquera is used as a functional riding discipline, used to herd the cattle in the campo, in the countryside, then you can imagine that your aids have to be super light. So I explained that before, and now I can actually demonstrate it a little bit better if Isolde doesn't fall asleep here, because the sun is shining and she usually takes a nap around this time. So I'll walk around a little bit, and not sure if you can hear me. I'll try to talk when I come back around. But what we want our horse to do is really step away easily and actively from our legs. So I'll turn her a little bit first, because I have to stay within the range of the camera. And she's already fallen asleep. I'll try to stay within this circle here. So we want our horse to step away actively and remain active, and paying attention as we keep going. Obviously, and I'll stop. Obviously, Doma Vaquera is a functional form of riding. So like I said, you use it originally working the cattle in the field. So when you ride, you always have to consider that. So when you ride, don't ride, thinking, oh, I'm just going to ride in my own little riding arena and nothing's going to happen, everything's fine. If my horse moves when I ask her to, she can. If she doesn't want to move, that's fine too. No, when you ride, you have to think with that mindset of Doma Vaquera that you would ride off into the countryside and your horse would have to, react directly to every little aid you give, because that's super important. Because if you're riding with the cattle, and as you know, the cattle there is quite aggressive, they have to respond, and they have to respond quickly. So you want to make sure your horse is constantly attentive to your aids and really reacts quick. And that's what you also need later, because like I said, with a combination of all those 5 basics, you can do your advanced exercises, but not if it costs a lot of effort. So like you saw us dozing off here a little bit. If I have to use a lot of effort to make her go, that's not handy, because this is just from halt to walk. But if I want to go from halt to canter off, arriar as they call it, is sprint off, after a backup, then I'm going to need a horse that's going to react quick and not need a lot of aid to do so. I don't wear spurs with Isolda, only when I ride with the Gorocha, but technically I don't need it unless she's dozing off, because she thinks, oh, she's talking anyway, she's not paying attention. So like I said, so the first one was walking off quickly, actively, responding to the aids, very attentive. Second one was stopping. So stop, the same thing. So if eventually you have to consider that in Doma Vaquera we go from not just a canter to a stop like you might in dressage. No, we go from running and sprinting, canter, to a stop, a parada arraya, which is, or a sliding stop like in Western, where you leave lines behind you. That's why it's called stop on the line. But it is a stop. Eventually you have to stop from a running, a fast pace, from a canter. So stop also has to be very light. You have to use your leg aid or your weight aids. You sit back a little and your horse should already stop. Your rein aids are secondary. So of course you can use your reins if you have to, but your horse should really stop on your weight. So with just slight weight back, your horse should stop, and preferably stop on the hindquarters. It's kind of hard to get her going good here in this small circle, but I think you know what I mean. Get up a little bit in the frame of the camera. So the third one was to back up. So again, you always have to think further. You always have to push the boundaries when you're teaching your horse something, or when you're trying to get further. So with the backup as well, we don't only back up from just a walk and then back up several strides. No, Isolda, not yet. We do a backup and then we run off, we stop, then we back up again, run off, stop, halt. So again, the backup has to be super attentive. In competition sport, they have to back up at least 6 or 7 steps. And they have to go in a straight line and obviously moving diagonal. But if you imagine, again, this is a functional riding discipline. If you're in the field and all of a sudden, a steer or even the cows, because they're aggressive as well, they come up to you, you need to be able to stop and either turn around like a 180-degree media vuelta, or, back up quick. In any case, your horse has to respond well. But what we also do with backup is also we use that and combine that with other aids to create things like the media vuelta, which is a 180 turn around the haunches in walk and in canter. So, you'll do a split second halt, you think back and you turn, but that's also a combination. That's using that thinking back up. The horse has to respond to that back up with light aids and do that. And another thing about the backup is that for some horses, it's a something that's really telling about the rank. So if you don't have a good understanding with your horse, if your horse is not convinced that you're the leader, he will not back up that easily. So this is something really important for you to work on if it's not the case. I mean, these 5 basic things, they seem so basic, but if you don't have them, you're not going to get any further. If you stagnate in your training, You're always going to have to go back to one of those 5 things. So backup is super important as well. And again, response, response, response. In Doma Vaquera, the thing that they pay attention to most, it's not even about the correctness of the exercises in some cases, but it's really about the response of the horse, the discipline of the rider, the obedience of the horse, and also submissiveness. And this is one of those things where, you know, you can see the submissiveness of your horse. So Isolda, we haven't ridden for several weeks, so that was pretty good. It's pretty straight. She's a little bit crooked at the moment, but I was happy with that. Sometimes she'll kind of freak out a little bit. She'll be like, no, I'm already backing up. But that was pretty okay. So what you'll see, like I said, in competition sport, Doma Vaquera, you have to do at least 6 or 7 steps backwards. But what you'll see a lot of times, they try to show off. They'll do, you know, I don't know, 20 steps backwards or across the whole arena, you know, just to show how straight their horse is, how obedient it is, and how, you know, submissive and under control it is. So that was number 3. So we, you know, go forward, stop, halt, and back up. 3, I believe I said change directions. Yes, I said that. Change directions with your leg. So I explained that before with Jamil. I hope you can still hear me because the wind is blowing. So I explained that before, and the important thing there is that your horse responds to your leg aids and not to your reins necessarily, because the reins are really secondary aid. We do not do neck reining. That's actually forbidden in Doma Vaquera, and actually a bad word. So contrary to what a lot of people think, we do not, if we want to go left, we really do that with our leg. So our right leg goes back, and we lean to the left, and your horse follows you. And instead of with neck reining, you would, you know, push against the right side of the neck. You don't do that. You actually kind of ask your horse to look to the left to where you're going. So you put your right leg back, and you kind of move your hand actually to the right, so you can see she's bending her head. If I ask to do the other way, she'll do it that way as well. So I want her to look in the direction that I'm going. So I'll show that by doing a couple of little 8 figures. And I hope in the middle you'll see how I change my leg. And I'm doing that very exaggeratively. Is that a word? I'm exaggerating in any case. So you can really see how I change. But the most important thing is just moving your body. If you move your body, you're already, if I turn like this, my leg already goes back. And what another thing happens, and I explained that with Jamil as well, is that you have more pressure on your left hip. So your left or seat bone, basically. So that'll already also be, something that will show the horse what to do. And this is something that horses do instinctively. I think I explained with trotters as well, when you're breaking them in, a horse will yield away from pressure. So that pressure of your leg, he will yield away from that. So I'll do some figure 8s and hope you can see that. hope that was clear enough to see. So as you noticed, as I would go to the left and then turn to go the other way to do my little figure 8, let me back up a little bit because otherwise you can't see me. I would change my leg. So I would put my leg back, but I would also look that way, and then when I went the other way, I would turn that way. And like I said, at the same time, I would use my rein, not to steer. Really, it's not steering; it's just getting the right bend in my horse. So I would do that. That's also something I explained last time with Jamil when I was using 2 hands and trying to get him more, loose in his body. And that's something we really need when you ride with 1 hand. Your horse has to respond to your bit, to your hand lightly. So when he feels pressure to the right, you want your horse to look to the right, of course in combination with your seat bone. And when you use a little bit of asking on the left, you want your horse to look to the left. And then you look to the right. Come on, Isola. She's like, no. So that's what you want your horse to respond that easily, because when you're riding with 1 hand, it's just your hand can only do 4 things basically. It can go up, you can basically pull it, you can let it, push it forward, give them more space. You can do left, or you can do right. That's pretty much all you can do with your rein. So your horse has to respond to those subtle actions very well. The last thing I said is that your horse has to yield away from the pressure from your leg. So this is super important as well. With any exercise, doing a lot of the lateral movements are super important to getting your horse straight. But in general, with Doma Vaquera, your horse has to be totally under control. If you're working in the field, again, think like that. Even though you might never set foot in the campo, in the countryside, you always have to consider that, you could just ride off from the arena into the countryside and your horse would respond just as well, and you could just herd the cattle and, be safe as well, because it's all about being safe. If you don't have total control of your horse, you can die. You can die and your horse can die, and nobody wants that, right? So you have to have total control. You have to have total control of your horse's 4 feet, each placement, each step, everything has to be under control. And that's why they demand that submissiveness. And a lot of people think that's not nice. They only go to obedience and not submissiveness. No, you want your horse submissive, because any misunderstanding in the countryside can lead to death. So, and of course, none of us are going to ride out there with the bulls, in the countryside, but that doesn't matter. It's the mentality, it's the thought, the feeling, the method behind all the riding and all what you do with Doma Vaquera. It's that thought. That's why you ride like that. That's why the exercises are made as they are. So leg yielding is super important, and yet leg yielding, of course, starts really easy. It just starts from basic circles. That's how you begin leg yielding. You increase your circle and you make it smaller, and you increase and you make it smaller. And by doing that, your horse steps away from your leg, either from the inside circle to the outside or from the outside circle to the inside. Then you start doing your leg yielding, across the arena in diagonal shapes. You can do it shoulder in, or you can do taffere. They're all forms of leg yielding, and these are all things that you need, again, in combination with other one of the other 5 basics. You can create exercises like the media vuelta, where you turn around 180. Like I said, it's a combination of, you're going forward, you have lots of momentum and activity from behind. Then you a split second you think halt, then again a split second you think back, and then at the same time you think, move your horse around, which is a leg yield. So all those things, it's a combination of a lot of those, and it's like that with all the advanced exercises. They're a combination of one of the, a little bit, it's almost like a recipe, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little more of that, a little less of this. But that's the thing, if you don't have total control and you don't have those 5 basics down, you can't do anything, because if you're missing one ingredient or not enough of one ingredient, it's not the same. It's not the exercise. It's not the dish you wanted to make, and it's not going to be as delicious either. So very important. So let me see. I'll try to show you one of, I guess, the most extreme, just basic leg yielding exercises is the paso costado. And it's basically a half pass, but it goes at a 90-degree angle. So your horse, instead of going diagonal across the arena, your horse literally goes, you know, straight to the left and straight to the right. So let's see if she's being responsive enough today to be able to show you both ways. Happy with that. By the way, if a little pinto pony appears in the shot, that's Lucy. Isolde is not a fan, and neither am I. She's a little turd. She already pushed my camera over once, so I'm not too happy about that. So I hope she goes in a minute, because otherwise I'm going to have to shoo her away, or Isolde's going to have to get mad. But anyway, so those are the 5 basic things, and just explain very basic. So what I'll be doing going forward, there's a plane flying over us now, I hope you can hear me. So what I'll be doing going forward is taking each basic and expanding that and telling you how that works and how you can start doing that. But what I'm also doing, and I hope to post that next week, is eventually I'd like to write a book in English, because there's several books. They're all Spanish. There's a German one, I believe. There's also a French one, but there's no English book about Doma Vaquera. And I'd like to give my take on that, and of course I'll work together with Antonio. But to really explain the basics and just in general everything, the tack. So what I'm going to be doing is making a presentation. It'll be in PowerPoint, but then I'll post it on YouTube. And it'll be a presentation which is short snippets of how to start, what to pay attention to, what kind of tack do you use, what are the basic exercises that I just explained, and then I'll also be expanding those. So next week, now I talked a little bit about those basics with Isolde and showed a couple things. Next week I'll probably post that, the little presentation, and then again I'll expand on each one, and then in conjunction with Isolde, then I can expand on each exercise and show you, you know, in more detail how to do that and what's important, what to pay attention to. You know, I personally always like to do do's and don'ts, or see that it's like super clear on, you know, what to pay attention to and how to do things, and you know, showing how it's not supposed to be done and showing how it is supposed to be done. So more on that later. I hope you enjoyed. This was just a short video just to get going again. Thank you again for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Spread the word. We're still spreading the gospel of Doma Vaquera. Getting it all over the world. We're getting more and more responses, and I'm super thankful for all of your support. You know, let's make this happen. You know, Antonio and my dream is to have this become an Olympic sport. So let's make sure we can do that. And in the meantime, again, if you have questions, just send me a message, you know, write on the comments below, but make sure you subscribe and tell other people that are interested to subscribe too, because we need to get the word out. Thank you very much, and see you soon.